Today I'll conclude my teardown and review of Eureka's new Mignon Libra grinder, which doses by weight with its own built-in scale. Last time we saw that the operation is simple and the workflow is smooth and efficient. I checked the burr alignment and run out and everything looked fine. Retention outside the grind chamber was virtually zero. It's neat and tidy and exceptionally convenient to use. If you missed that video, there's a link in the pinned comment below. As I was looking at the weighing mechanism, I encountered some damaged parts, so I decided to pause there as I would prefer to put everything back together properly. I ordered some replacement parts which arrived recently, and now we can look at the lower end.
Oh my God.
It's like a miracle.
One of the corners of the base was broken, possibly due to shipping impact or possibly due to an over-tightened fastener. The lower PCB was loose because 3 of the 4 nylon fasteners had their heads sheared off. My guess is that they were over-tightened by an inexperienced assembly worker. I'd rule out impact because the PCB weighs so little. The G-forces needed to break those fasteners would have pulverized the machine. But they're tough enough, and the PCB is mounted on 4 standoffs, as it should be. In both cases, the base and the PCB, I'd say the damage was not due to either a design flaw or parts defect. I'm sure it was accidental. The PCB is well made, wave soldered, good fillets. The components look solid. You can see a transformer for 9-volt DC, a relay, a couple of small caps, and leads for the motor, the load cell, and the user interface. Obviously, all of the magic is going to be in the firmware. There's no reason to disconnect the PCB completely, and I would rather not. I don't know how well I can show this with my camera skills, but these locking spade connectors have a little tab in there that you can defeat using a small screwdriver or tweezers or something suitable. You just kind of fiddle with it until it releases, kind of like picking a lock. I mean, like I imagine picking a lock would go. I hate playing with these if they're mounted with solder because you can damage a through-hole joint in a way that's not readily visible, and your pick can create a lot of leverage. So I do this only when absolutely necessary, and here it's not. Once this plate is free, we can see that the entire front assembly moves and impinges on the load cell, that rectangular object there. Here's a picture of one. This is essentially a force transducer that varies its electrical resistance in proportion to the force applied. This is pretty much what's inside your kitchen scale. I'm chiefly concerned with the quality of the wiring and mounting, and both look more than adequate. Leads extending into the main body, subject to vibration, are sleeved. Everything's nicely supported and fastened. The mechanism looks robust and simple enough to be trouble-free and yet easily serviceable. There's nothing here you'd have a hard time removing or replacing, so good design and good components here. Above we have the single-phase induction motor we're used to seeing with the Eureka adjustment linkage, which moves the motor shaft, hence the lower carrier, while the upper carrier is completely fixed. I think everyone agrees that it works well. I have several Eureka grinders and I've never had an issue with grind adjustment. Incidentally, I could take one of these motors completely apart sometime and talk about it in detail if anyone's interested. A number of viewers have asked me if they can use things like dimmer switches or rheostats or potentiometers to control their grinder speed, and the answer, if we're talking about single-phase induction, is absolutely not. Reducing voltage or current will only reduce torque, not speed. So perhaps I should do an in-depth video on the various motors that we find in coffee grinders. Now everything is mounted properly, new fasteners and all. That feels just fine. Now I'll swap in the new base. This came with a capacitor, power switch, and clamp. I could easily have reused the old ones, but okay. Locking spade connectors again. These I've got to undo to get the wires through the opening in the base, but they're not connected to anything delicate, so a little struggle won't be a problem. It's all very straightforward. Just disconnect everything and pull the wires through. Notice that they won't go together. You have to remove them one at a time. Now for the new base. Feed the wires in, one at a time as I said. Connect the ground, then the cap, then the switch. Tighten the clamp, and you're good to go. So let me sum up why this has become my favorite grinder and talk about what I'd like to see changed or improved. Number 1 on the list of virtues is workflow. If you regularly pull several shots in succession, you're going to love this machine. Second, we've got good firmware here, a simple interface, and a very readable display. Dosing is accurate and repeatable. It's simple to calibrate using any known reference weight. You can operate it manually. It will read in grams and tenths, so you can get pretty close to your target with a little practice. I'm not going to go through the menus since it's like the other Mignon menus, and that's been done to death. Eureka has a video posted that shows most of the menu functions, so I'll link it in the description. Third, there's virtually no retention outside the grind chamber, so it's exceptionally tidy. A considerate house guest. And that also accounts for high dose accuracy and repeatability. And finally, the flavor is great. It's just like the Specialita. It's essentially the same grinder. Good balance, plenty of dynamic range. No one's going to return one of these because they don't like the coffee. So I have a few suggestions. I think this grinder should do more than espresso. Like the Spet, it's very adaptable. I think Eureka could increase demand by adding a catch cup that fits the fork nicely and holds, say, 80 grams, so the machine can be used for any brewing method. I know from experience that it can grind competently for Turkish, espresso, mocha pot, drip, and French press. So I say, invite everyone to the party. I mentioned in part 1 that one of my portafilters was unstable on the rest here, so perhaps some minor modification of the lower rest is in order, maybe just the foam pad with a tackier surface. Number 2, it's expensive. Of course, there's a significant cost of research and development rolled up in here. So I hope the company will export the Libra technology to other models and other product lines to distribute the development costs more broadly and bring down the Libra's price while maintaining a comfortable margin. So that's about it. Currently, I'm working on several videos. I'll be showing you ways to keep your espresso machine immaculately clean without any chemical. I'll cover the use of various types of paper filters and answer the burning question, is this the best way to turn my machine into a $2,000 AeroPress? I'm going to demonstrate and explain the difference between a legitimate single shot and half of a double shot, and I bought a VST precision basket for that video, which yielded some truly amazing bonus footage. I'm not sure of the order, but I expect to have the first of these published within 2 weeks' time, so keep in touch. Cheers!